jury selection is set to begin tomorrow in the case filed by former advice columnist Carroll. She claims former President Donald Trump raped her in a New York City department store dressing room in the 1990s. And this comes as Trump faces other legal challenges. So here to discuss is CBS News legal contributor Rebecca Roiphe and CBS News investigative reporter Graham Cates. So it's good to have both of you guys here. So Graham, I'm going to start with you. What can you tell us about this case? Will Donald Trump likely testify? Kind of update us on this, because I actually thought that this case wasn't going to go anywhere initially, but it looks like it is.
Sure, and there were two different facets to this case. One was a lawsuit that was filed years ago that still hasn't gone to trial. And then there's the one that's going to trial tomorrow that is the result of the New York Adult Survivors Act, which back in November allowed kind of a new avenue for claims to go through for people who say they were the survivors of sexual abuse. That stretched the statute of limitations. Just for this, it's a one-year window where you could file these new claims. And this is a trial related to that. And it's alleging both defamation and battery. And you're right, jury selection is scheduled to begin tomorrow. It's actually still unclear if former President Trump will appear at the trial. It seems a little unlikely. What happened was they had a deadline of the 20th to tell the judge whether or not he would be there and what days. And instead of saying he'll be there, his attorney said, first they asked, if he does not come, can you read something to the jurors saying essentially the reason he's not there is to spare New York City the kind of the time and logistics and money that it takes to bring a president to the courtroom. And the judge said no. And then his attorney said, well, you know, we don't know yet if we're going to call him as a witness, and we'll tell you beforehand if we decide to do that.
So, Rebecca, we are expected to hear from Georgia's Secretary of State this week. Let's talk about the legal troubles the former president is facing in that state.
So in Georgia, there's a criminal probe into the former president's alleged interference in the results or effort to change the results of the 2020 election. And in Georgia especially, there's a question about the certain calls he made to Georgia officials and efforts to have them overturn the election and also create a fake slate of electors who would be promoting his candidacy or presidency over President Biden, who won the state. So that is a criminal probe into questions of his interference in that election.
So, Graham, meantime, the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee has reached an agreement with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to allow former prosecutor Mark Pomerantz to testify in a congressional probe into Trump's indictment. The investigators are being investigated. Why does this panel want to speak to Mark Pomerantz?
Mark Pomerantz led the Manhattan District Attorney's Office's investigation of Trump for about a year. Now, this was, for the most part, before the current district attorney, Alvin Bragg, took office. And what happened was he kind of very publicly resigned, and then he wrote a controversial memoir about that year or so that he was leading the investigation. And the Judiciary Committee said essentially that what they saw in that memoir was what they view as a politicized investigation, and that's roughly what they're investigating. And they said that he kind of waived the privileges afforded to a prosecutor in terms of not being called to testify like this because he wrote his memoir. Of course, the District Attorney's Office said it was actually our privilege, not his, and we never gave him permission to write this memoir. And that was why they were fighting about whether he should have to testify. But they reached an agreement on Friday. He's scheduled to testify in a couple of weeks. And this is just kind of the next step in their investigation, like you said, of the investigators.
Rebecca, the Justice Department continues to investigate the former president's retention of highly classified documents after departing the White House in 2021. It's striking to me that he's got these other cases, specifically Georgia and this one. And I know the media made a big deal about his arrest here in New York, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
First time a former president was arrested, but it almost strikes me that these two, the ones that we're talking about here, are more perilous for the former president than the Alvin Bragg case. So break it down for me. I mean, how perilous is that case, the documents case, for the former president?
You know, it could be. There are huge question marks as to, what exactly happened and what was the president's involvement and his intent with regard to those documents. As we know, there were subpoenas for documents that were retained by the former Vice President Pence and by Biden himself. But there have been at least some reports that suggest that these are quite different cases from what happened with former President Trump, because former President Trump may have intentionally retained these documents, moved these documents, and tried to keep these documents from the government. And that could put him in serious, give him some serious criminal exposure. And so I'm sure that the special counsel is looking into those questions and, seeing if there's a real case to build, a criminal case about the former president's retention of those documents, whether or not they had criminal intent in that case.
All right, Rebecca and Graham, always great to have you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.